Hi there, this is Carol again, and this is our last section on phase number 1. This is section number 5. I call this section the central nervous system. Before you entered into the picture as a notary signing agent, there are many people who have worked really hard on behalf of the borrowers to help them get their loan that they have applied for. This is a little bit about all of these people. I'm going to start with an article that I wrote a number of years ago called The Anatomy of a Loan. This is just the short version of the loan process and all the people who work hard to successfully close the loan. A more detailed breakdown will follow. I wanted to describe what happens from the moment the borrower initiates the original loan application. They usually meet with or telephone a loan officer to apply for a loan. The lender will complete the loan application form, which is, by the way, known, this is very important for you to remember, it's known as the 1003. And the lender of the mortgage company has loan processors who will begin to process the loan by collecting all the information required to approve the loan. Now, the lender is a bank or credit union or private lender who will be actually loaning the money to the borrower. The mortgage company is the middleman who gathers all of the information in order for the lender to approve the loan. The next step is the underwriter. The underwriter is provided with the paperwork, and this is the person who is responsible for reviewing all of the information about both the borrower and the property and all aspects of the loan. They are the ones that are responsible for either approving or disapproving of the loan based on all of the criteria submitted to them. Next comes the escrow officer. The lender generally opens the escrow with either a title company or an escrow company, and both of which have escrow officers. Escrow officers are the disinterested third party in a transaction who holds the documents and the funds until such time that the transaction is ready to be completed, documents recorded, funds dispersed, and the escrow closed. I'm going to repeat it. The escrow is the disinterested third party in a transaction that holds onto the documents, the funds, until the time that the transaction is ready to be completed, documents recorded, and funds dispersed, and the escrow is closed. The title officer is the one who, upon the opening of the title order, initiates a search of the public records to determine the information about the property. The information about the property would include any liens, if there's any easements on the property, any encroachments, anything that affects this property is put into a report. The report is called, in most states, a preliminary title report. Once this preliminary title report has been completed, a copy will be sent to both the lender and the escrow company by the title company. The title officer is also responsible for the recordation of the documents, paying off the liens, printing instructions from the lenders, and issuing the title policy at the close of escrow, therefore ensuring that the property is free and clear of all unwanted debts and liens. In refinancing, the title policy protects the lender. As a matter of fact, it is called a lender's policy. This is important for you to remember. The borrower was issued a policy of title insurance when they purchased the property originally, and that insurance remains in effect until the property is sold or the owners pass away. And you might want to make a note of that information. So just remember, when you buy a piece of property, you are issued a policy of title insurance. That protects you in case anything shows up later on and the title company has to cover that. It's an insurance policy. When they're borrowing money on a property in a refinance, then it's the lender that is protected when there's a charge on the paperwork for a title policy. It is not necessarily necessary for the borrower, to purchase additional title insurance to protect themselves. They are already protected. Now we have the loan processor. Once the loan is approved and the package goes to a special loan processor, who, among other things, usually prepares the documents for the borrowers to sign. Not all lenders use the same method of preparation. The next thing that we have is the notary signing agent. We, of course, are responsible for obtaining and notarizing the borrower's signature on the documents and returning the documents in a condition that is ready for funding and in a timely manner. The final process is actually the lender. When they are ready, the lender funds the loan by sending the money to the title company. The title company pays off any liens on the property per the instructions and sends the balance of the funds to the escrow officer. All of the final paperwork is prepared and the funds dispersed to all of the parties concerned, and the escrow is closed. I'm going to get a little more of the detail about title and escrow and how they work together, and a more detailed look at the responsibility of the various parties involved in the process of the loan closing. Most people don't have any idea what the title or escrow officer's roles are in the real estate transactions, and I think it's really important for you to be aware of the important role they play in this process. In addition, you need to understand how important your role is also, so that you don't cause anybody to lose their paycheck because you managed to do something wrong. The first thing that I'd like for you to understand is the meaning of a security instrument. A security instrument is the document that is recorded disclosing publicly that there is a loan against the property. That security instrument actually secures the note. It protects the note, which is not recorded. Now the security instrument is generally called the deed of trust or a mortgage. You'll find that on the West Coast, more times than not, it is called the deed of trust, and in the West, on the east side of the country, they call it a mortgage. Basically, it's the same thing. There's a little bit of difference, which we're going to get into once we start going through the documents. Usually a trustee, and the trustees are the ones who have the authority to foreclose on a property without going through the court system or the sheriff's department. On a mortgage, there is no trustee, so it is up to the lender to handle the foreclosure proceedings. And in order for them to do that, they do have to go through this court system, and they have to utilize the sheriff's department. Depending on your location would determine which one is used. And as I stated, however, it does appear that on the western part of the United States, it seems they use the deed of trust rather than the mortgage. And in the eastern part of the country, mortgages are more often used as security. Okay, now we're going to take a closer look at the work of an escrow officer. Initially, the order is opened with the escrow officer, and then the escrow officer will open the title order with the title company. The escrow officer prepares the instructions and sends them out to all of the parties involved. The escrow officer receives the preliminary title report from the title company, and they check all of the pertinent information, such as the manner in which the owners are vested, the taxes, and the legal description of the property. They also look at the liens against the property, and the owner of the escrow officer is responsible for verifying that the taxes are paid up to date. They are also responsible for obtaining demands for the liens and judgments that need to be cured, which means that they must be paid off or somehow removed from the property records. and they order the demands from the lenders of record. A demand is just that. It is a letter demanding payment in full from the lender addressed to the escrow, and it shows how much money is due to pay off the loan at the close of escrow. During the escrow process, the escrow officer will be working on making sure that everything is in place to honor the title company's commitment to deliver clear title with the lender's lien in first possession. They are also responsible for getting the signing instructions for the borrower and the lender and the sellers in a purchase transaction. Once the loan officer, underwriter, and processor's jobs are done and the loan documents are drawn, they are usually sent to the escrow officer first. The escrow officer will then prepare the HUD-1 settlement statement or the closing disclosure. The lender may have prepared an estimated closing statement based on the loan fees, but it is the job of the escrow officer to actually prepare the final HUD-1. This is on the test, so remember this. It is up to the escrow officer to prepare the final HUD-1 settlement statement because they have their finger on all of the expenses involved in the transaction. After the HUD is prepared, the escrow officer sends it to the lender for final approval. Following approval, the documents are then drawn, prepared, sent to the escrow officer who sends the documents to the signing agent or to the signing service. When the documents are returned to the escrow officer, they process the documents and send the required documents back to the lender. If a borrower is coming in with funds, then you need to be aware of what type of funds are acceptable. In some states, there are good funds law which dictate that all checks going to title companies are only to be certified funds and not personal checks. Or perhaps there's a limit in your state of maybe anything over $200 must be certified funds, or anything over $5,000 must be certified funds. You should be aware of your own state, and you will be made aware if you're signing documents for another state. Okay, as I mentioned before, when the title order is opened, the title officer initiates the search of the property, and the preliminary title report is issued. Title officers are responsible for making sure that if there are any clouds on the property, if there's any liens or anything that's going to keep them from recording the documents, that they will be working with escrow to take care of removing those liens. Anything that will be on the property that's not acceptable to the lender must be removed. Once the loan has been approved and the documents returned to the lender, and the lender funds the loan, those funds are sent to the title officer, and that is the money that the officer works with to pay off the liens to the property. Now that's different than the bills that are to be paid through escrow. In many areas, the title and the escrow officer will be working together in the same company. A lot of title companies do have both the title officer and the escrow officer under one roof. They will work together at the end of the transaction to make sure that the property is free and clear per the instructions, and all of the documents are properly recorded and all of the money is dispersed. As you can see, there's a lot of people involved with the loan processing, and it makes this thing work. You are the final cog in the wheel, and you are a huge part of the process. If you do something to make a mess out of this, it can cause the whole thing to collapse. Everyone is depending on you for their paycheck. Furthermore, they can cause everybody who's put so much hard work before you to lose all of that work in completing the process. I tell you this because I want you to understand how important you are in this process, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you are just the notary. Just remember, always read your instructions, know what the rules and regulations of your state are, and always do your best on every single transaction. There is no room for error. I do want you to know that when things go wrong, they will go wrong, and the trick is learning how to be perfect in not so perfect situations. When you make a mistake, and you will, we're all human, be gracious, take responsibility for it, and fix it. It's as simple as that. There's going to be a lot of reasons why you did not do it right, but just skip that and go to the how can I fix it. There's no guarantee that you will keep the customer, but you will keep some of them. Some of your customers will get very ugly about your error. Keep your composure and continue to be gracious and fix it. Please believe it is often not the mistake that you make that the vendor will remember. It is how you rectified the error that they will remember. So repeat that in your head again. It is not the mistake that you make that your client will remember. It is how you took care of that graciously and expeditiously that they will remember. Once you have fixed the problem, call a friend and complain. You're not going to lose a customer and your friend won't mind. The next thing that we're going to be going through through the first beginning course is to cover the new disclosure, and it depends on the type of loan whether it's used or not. The closing disclosure does replace the HUD-1, the truth in lending, and the good faith estimate on many loans. However, I have included these documents in the document section because there are still some types of loans that use the HUD, the truth in lending, and the good faith estimate, and I wanted you to be aware of what both of them are in addition to the new disclosure. Well, we've come to the end of section 5 and the end of phase 1 of the course. So congratulations. If you need to go through this 2 or 3 times in order to pass your exam, I really want you to know what you're doing. I think we have the best training available, and I have absolutely the best graduates in the country, and that goes without question.